Hello, everyone. I'm going to take just a minute or so to allow people to sign on. My name is Lana Smithner. I am the founder of Death Me Dying Tree. I'm also the artistic facilitator and director. Death Me Dying Tree is both a community service project that does live and now virtual events, and it's also a documentary. I'm going to play a trailer in a little bit to introduce the project more fully. Yeah, I want to start out just and also to allow for everybody to join. Let's see, everyone's coming in. I want to start by inviting you to come to any comfortable position, whatever feels good for your body. Just letting my cat out of my room right now. If it feels comfortable, close your eyes. Just start to connect to your breath. When I'm breathing and when I'm looking for embodiment, it helps me to touch myself. So I invite you to touch your body anywhere that it feels supportive. So for me right now, just to help invite even more breath into my body, I'm going to hold my heart center and my abdomen center, place of creation. Notice the temperature of the air as you inhale. Notice how the chest and ribs and abdomen expand. Hold at the top of the breath for just a moment and then open mouth, exhale. Inhale when you're ready. Open mouth, exhale. Slow, long inhale. Exhale. I want to thank everybody for coming today. I have some really exciting speakers and artists who I'm a huge fan of their work and what they do and what they stand for. So I'm really excited to share that with you very shortly on the topics of grief and joy. Before I do that, I just want us to take a moment to acknowledge the land that each of us is living on. This is a global event tonight. So I'm just going to share the land that I'm on. The land that I'm on is the Seminole and the Timucua land, and it's now known as St. Augustine, Florida. That's where I'm calling in from. And land is a really powerful ally, and land is something that we can have a relationship and communicate with. So in all the work that I do, obviously I bring trees into it. But in all the work that I do, I try to counsel the land. Yeah. And so right now, just as what I mean by that is simply that I'm going to continue breathing and to make sure that both of my feet are on the ground. My hands are resting in my lap. I'm just going to check in with the land and thank the land for supporting me, for allowing me to be here. And I invite you all to notice what land you're on right now. Yeah. To imagine all the people, all the plants and animals who cared for the land before you. All the people, plants, and animals who are caring for it now. And everyone who will care for it in the future. Thank you. I'm going to play the trailer for Death Me Dying Tree now because I think it'll introduce the project a little better than I can. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk just for a moment about why I asked all the artists to gather here today. And we're going to take a moment for our loved ones who are not with us anymore, whether that be humans or animals or plants or other. So if you want to grab a memento of them, or a candle, or a glass of water, or you can just hold their memory, we'll be doing that directly after we watch this trailer. So this is Death Me Dying Tree. The United States is about to face its largest aging and dying population in history, and we're unprepared for it. From a lack of housing to emotional and spiritual death support, we're ignoring this reality. The COVID-19 crisis has further exposed our country's need to address how we sustain each other and how we care for elders before, during, and after death.
You know, everything dies, and so it's like, okay, the next step, it's a part of everything, you know, the circle of creation.
And grief is a really unspeakable thing. I think we all handle it differently. But when I'm grieving, I find it healing to make noise.
And have you chosen a power of attorney?
Yes, my partner is my power of attorney.
Have you thought about how you want to release your body or bury it?
Yeah, I mean, I know we still haven't figured this out perfectly, but I love the Greek myth where the couple become trees together, and so I would love my body to like nurture a tree.
Death Me Dying Tree is a nationwide tour of interactive meditations on death and rebirth, led by death doula Lana Smithner as she interviews artists, community members, and death professionals to explore how the U.S. is dealing with death.
If I'm in a group of people who are all talking about it, it'll be easier than if I'm doing it on my own.
If you trace any fear to its root, it's a fear of death.
I really want to have a better relationship with death.
I had this feeling today that my mom was having a good time. Like, she's like, oh, it's a party for me. There are all these presents in the room of people who are like, oh, they're remembering me and we're talking about me, instead of just being like, I don't talk about my dead mom, you know?
How would I define it? As a closing and as peace ahead.
All right, so as the video prompted, we're going to talk about death now, but a subsect of it to make it a little less overwhelming. So tonight we're going to be talking about grief and joy. And the reason why this event is called Grief and Joy is that they're essentially in a dance together. They're interwoven, they're almost married. And when we experience one, that means that we also have the capability to experience the other. And the more grief literate that we become, the more we're able to come in community just like this and talk about grief and feel grief and transmute grief. That also means that the larger capacity we have to actually feel joy and to embrace life and to live fully and pleasurably. And so that's sort of almost the upside of grief. And whenever I talk about death, I also like to talk about life. Whenever I talk about grief, it's essential to also talk about joy. So while we will be feeling things and talking about the pain of isolation, of destruction in the world right now, of intolerance and fires and hurricanes, we're also going to be talking about feeling that in community, breathing, and also we're going to, because we're together, we're going to explore the possibility of actually bringing grief into this work and allowing ourselves to be just as joyous as we are mournful. It's a really important component. So right now, I just want to take a moment before we hear from all of the artists this evening to light a candle You can light a candle in your mind's eye, or you can join the candle that I've lit. This can be your candle for all of your loved ones. If it feels good, close the eyes and just bring your loved one. It could be many, there could be one, there could be an animal, a person, a plant, an object. It can be anything that you love and you've lost. Anyone who's passed, anyone who's died. Just breathe for them now. Feel them. Invite them into this space. Let them know that we want to honor them and remember them. I'll have this candle going through the whole event, and I'll probably light a bunch more tonight as well to hold space for all of our loved ones. Thank you for joining me in that. And now I'm going to hand it over to B, who's going to share with us. So B, come on screen whenever you're ready.
Hey, blessings everybody. My name is B. Ederson, and I'm really grateful to be able to share a little bit in practice on working with grief and also how that is an extension of my joy. I have the pleasure of being able to be the living descendant of, and that the person who succeeded my father, who transitioned now 6 years ago. And I'm currently in Jamaica, where he was born, and I've moved here about 3 weeks ago. And this space is such a powerful reminder of all of the elements and ways that his life and his spirit continue to bring me joy. Some of a bit of what I wanted to share today, in addition to a little song, is that particular relationship to ancestry that happens forever, never ending, never ceasing. I'll share a bit of my heartfelt and hopefully very honest story and how that came to be, and how this began my relationship to finding ease and rest inside of a space that looks like grief, but that also, again, as I said before, is an extension of my joy. So really the offering title was, we are our future ancestors. We're the future ancestors of our generations. So what does it mean to live into that life right here and right now? What does it mean to practice into that knowing? And so much of what comes up for me when I think about that is that relationship Lana spoke about, or what really resonates with me is this acknowledgement of interbeing. And this awareness of being connected to all of life and all that has a form in life that looks and feels a little different. I believe in the continuation of a spirit. So when the body dies, the spirit continues and lives on. But the relationship and the connection to water, to nature, to land, to rocks, as well as to each other, and all of our ancestors, all of our loved ones who have passed on, is this particular space that I think is such a powerful and necessary practicing ground for really preparing ourselves to be the ancestors that we wish we want to be right now, that we're preparing to be. And that doesn't mean just in the context of thinking about what we leave our children or our nieces and nephews, our direct descendants, but it's also what we leave and we're holding and keeping and continuing the work and efforts for friends. I'll bring myself to a story where I learned that what I just talked space of practice. This transition I experienced as being one of the when my father and I were as a child and then much into my adulthood, he continuously called me bushwoman, bush gal. In patois here, Jamaica means someone who loves the trees and often in the woods. As a little girl, when my parents were away from home and I was being watched by my grandmother and my uncle, I slipped out the back open door about 4 years old and made my way. Actually, I wasn't even that old because I was crawling. I made my way past the poison tree. They found poison berries all over the floor and eventually on my clothes when they found me. And they found me because then I went missing, right? And, they're calling my parents and all of this. And they found me in the back of the shed, surrounded by rabbits, completely asleep. So I don't know if that was the impetus for my father calling me bushwoman or not. But I'm not certain how he could have forecast that passing I would become an herbalist. And that the majority of work would be surrounded and working with plant medicine and spirit. And that once opera singer, now turned spiritual singer that offers her song in reverence to the earth when television speaks that they give that. But for him as in the living, to practice in a way of holding my life with care, like I see every member of the community, and helping to inspire and create and support their vision and dream beyond the time that they could even see it, past their imagination. Such a practice. And it told me a little bit more as and so this lesson on being in size of real observation awareness of our surroundings, being mindful and engaged in our life, others, to be able to see and witness me and so many people. Such a beautiful offering of practice. So when my father transitioned, I had 5 single children. They all say I practiced the hardest. And this, for so what surprisingly started happening to me is that I myself in predicaments that are unimaginable. My father's people are marooned, meaning they're marooned here on the shores of Jamaica, but they are almost all of those who became freed slaves very early through using tech and self became the freed slaves in Jamaica. And most folks do Kanisi, which is an area. That's my lineage. It actually Chatalani. And so it's not a myth on me at all in the wake of this transition that I might inherit work and legacy to keep healing and growing, not the people, spiritual wealth.
I'm just coming out for a moment because I think that we may have lost B. So I'm just checking in. B, are you there? Can you hear us? Yeah. I think we may have lost her. Hopefully she'll be able to join us so that we can finish hearing this beautiful and powerful and intense story about transition. I'm going to lead us in just a moment of some more breathing, just to kind of forgive the technology that we're so reliant on right now. And I'll just kind of be able to laugh at, like, yeah, like we're able to connect because of these metal beings and this computer in front of us. But sometimes it cuts out or doesn't quite work right, and that's okay. So yeah, I just invite you to breathe for a few moments, and I'm just going to check in with my next artist and see if she's ready to go. Just notice how your body reacts as you're listening. Just notice if, as we're talking about things like people that we love that we've lost, what happens to the breath? And if it becomes a little intense, I remind you to feel the places where your body is touching whatever you're sitting on, touching the ground, the chair, the floor. Feel that. And allow yourself to be held, to be supported by the earth, the ground, the soil that's under you. Each time you inhale, allow that support to come up into the body as we move on and hear from Joy. And then hopefully Bee will be able to rejoin us and finish her story and song. But Joy, if you're good to come on in.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be part of this, so thank you, Lana. Just a thought that came up is that I feel like I grieve a lot alone. So it's really nice to be part of this and really share the space with you all. And yeah, I just feel really honored, so thank you. First, I'll tell a little bit about myself. My name is Joy Brandsma. Oh, B is back. Oh, maybe I'll just continue. I'm 27 years old. I'm a visual anthropologist and a poet and a painter, and I just do a lot of things, I guess. Currently I'm working on a project, a visual anthropology project, where I do a collaboration with queer dancers or dancers who subscribe to queer culture, and I am in a collaboration with them, and they send me videos of them dancing, and I really research how they relate to their bodies and to space in this pandemic, and hopeful. And with this project, I really hope to collect all these different narratives, and I feel also really hopeful narratives on how to navigate in this world as a queer person and also as a POC person. So that's really the joyful part of, I feel, my practice. Also I want to share some thoughts on my poem that I will share with you all in a bit. It's called COVID Meditations. I wrote it in March, and it was just when the pandemic kind of started, and I was just feeling really anxious, and the poem really came out of me like really like lava, and there was just so much grief and just so much pain and insecurity, and just really struggling with myself, and yeah, just really feeling that grief that wasn't only mine, but also I felt deeper, like really ancestral pain. And I wrote it, and everything started to happen, like the pandemic, also with the death of George Floyd. For everyone, I live in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and the death of George Floyd also really hit in Netherlands and also in different European countries. Yeah, there was really a movement, and I really felt, wow, I'm really not alone in this, and we really need to change, yeah, how things go, and really stand up against racial injustice. And it was so painful, and there was so much pain to work through. And yeah, the video that I made really it's like a translation of that. It's having all these spaces where you kind of hit a wall of your mind, realizing that the mental things, or maybe say depression or anxiety, it's just not a pathological thing, it's really a communal thing. And it's not just my anxiety, but of a lot of people. And just trying to find a way to deal with that. And for me, it's really through movement and dance, and now also community. So yeah, it really comes from a place of really making space and having courage to make space for that grief that I really tried to block out for a long time. Yeah, just being mixed race. My mom is from Rwanda, and yeah, Rwanda suffered a genocide. So it's really recent, and yeah, it's really hard. It's a really hard process to acknowledge that and feel like, yes, I am connected. Also, being in the Netherlands and having all these opportunities and being super privileged, it doesn't take away the connection that I have with my family, my ancestors. So yeah, really making space for that has really been a process, and it kind of translates into the poem. So I hope you all enjoy, and yes, let's watch COVID meditations. Don't be afraid to create chaos. Close my eyes to breathe. Every breath feeds sorrow, coming up like molten lava, concretized at the top. This pipeline was brought to you by Pipeline. Strangle myself with PVC, psychotic fever dream, no more laughs from this side. I swallow body dysmorphia like a hard pill, this body isn't mine, stuck in the shape-shifting wormhole. I'm a maggot, I'm a friend, I'm a leaf, come again. Swallow with big gulps, nappy-headed wish-wash, my shoulders tense. This white lady tells me to breathe, in and out, follow my breath, come back to it. When you get lost in thoughts, hands in front of your heart, the only thought I have is, I can be with me. I can sit with me. Don't be afraid. 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 I keep myself busy to distract myself from being eaten by gremlin zombie fleshy daily meals. I feel my weight on the mat. I feel the weight on my mat. I feel my weight on the mat. I cross my feet and hope to fly. Escapism is always my backup plan. I open my eyes. I life, I dream, I dream. I life, I dream, I dream. Bat my eyelashes. Meditation keeps my mind at ease.
That was so incredibly beautiful. Oh, I'm so grateful that you were you came in, Joy, after me. Oh gosh. As I mentioned earlier, I'm in a place where the internet might go. Deep gratitude for your offering. And the beautiful reminder to experience the grieving. Like, that's where I was in the story that I was sharing. It was this opportunity to be inside of both the grief, but inside of that space of grieving, which lasted for some time, still probably with me in this body. There was also this opportunity to be inside of a relationship to the spirit of my father and the spirit of other ancestors. And you don't, I believe, have to be a channel or a medium or anything for that. One can just experience the presence of this interconnectedness. And of course, it will never, for me, replace feeling his hand or hearing his voice. I still go back and play his voice messages. But there is something so powerful about being able to still and quiet and hear and or see him in the nature, the elements around me. Or even hear and feel the experience of him near my body and skin. And his particular encouragement and offering when I was a child to go into this particular, unbeknownst to me, this particular path of life, it continues with him by my side. And why I even came here to Jamaica in the middle of a pandemic. To keep doing the work of seeing and growing this relationship to land and fauna and trees and plants and the bush. And so I'm curious what it looks like in our practice of becoming our future ancestors if we keep learning from those that are present with us. If we keep listening for their voice, hearing their words of inspiration and encouragement, continue to lean in and trust the knowing that they're there listening back and offering support and direction. Being in close relationship to this never-ending, interrelated, interconnected relationship that we will continue to have. This is what brings me joy. While I can say I'm an Aquarian, so folks who know Aquarians, we're kind of, they say, out in the stratosphere sometimes, so we, meaning that's always been our life. We can kind of be a little far removed, kind of on our own in our constellation. But it is such an incredible gift when I'm there to be in any space I'm in, to really call on and feel the sensation and presence of my father, especially in those moments when I want him so close and so near. It brings me such joy to see the presence of his spirit and other spirits like my grandmother's show up in the form of birds that come out of nowhere in the middle of the day. That's when I need it. or when a particular animal crosses my path. I've been taught to look up the meaning and what's there for me in that one, because that is, again, an extension of that communication for me. My path is their path. This life connects to those 7 generations back and the 7 forward. Always interconnected. And so the joy of knowing that I am not alone in the moments when I feel the loneliest, to the grief of the reminder of the loss of my father in body form and physical form, grief of our world. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful reminder to settle back when I can feel my sensation of breath and know that they're at my back. That is how grief becomes the extension of my joy. Sweet Honey in the Rock has a beautiful song called Breaths. It's one of the songs that I sing and share for those who haven't heard it as a reminder of this interconnected relationship to spirit that we have all the time. Always present, always near. And it requires only that we allow ourselves to believe and to listen. I feel and have experienced. And the song goes like this. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. It's the ancestor's breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestor's breath and the voice of the water. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead are not under the earth. They're in the rustling trees, they're in the rolling woods, they're in the crying grass, they're in the holding rocks. The dead are not under the earth. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestor's breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestor's breath and the voice of the water. So listen more often. So listen more often. May we continue to listen to the support of our ancestors, the presence of all who are with us, and with them walk into the light towards the future that we have as the ancestors for the next generation. Thanks for your patience with my technology. I'm grateful to be here. And I look forward to passing it off to our next beautiful, beautiful offering.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you to those who have shared so far for your blessings, your meditations. They're good medicine for us all, especially in these difficult times. And so I just wanted to say thank you for sharing, and I'm grateful to also be hearing from everyone else who will be sharing today. Holding space for our ancestors here, holding space for our spirits and our healing process, which is so incredibly important right now. Yeah, so I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Malila. I'm from Seattle, which is Duwamish land, but right now I'm existing on Tongva and Hashiman land, which is Long Beach, California. My grandparents come from Fort Peck, Montana. We are Assiniboine and Yankton Sioux. And so I just wanted to acknowledge and pray for my ancestors. Thank for all of our ancestors for giving us the strength to hold space and talk about these things today in a good way. And as I've been sitting here meditating on the idea of grief and joy, it all comes back to gratitude, and it all comes back to our connection to the land for me. But also within myself, I'm realizing that a lot of this healing process of talking about grief, of walking through these transitions, comes from community as well. I often find myself feeling isolated, and when I exist in community, I exist in ceremony, those wells kind of open up, and the process kind of happens naturally, even if there's doubt in my mind that it won't or it'll be too scary. So, and the sensations that we all experience in life too are our sight, the things that we see, the colors that are present in our field of vision, the light, how the light hits things and makes shadows and highlights things, and our ears, what we hear, and the sounds that bless us every day, and the music. I'm a musician. The music that we hear, even if we're not listening or playing to music, there's music and things to hear and listen to. Our four-legged relatives, our winged relatives, our Mother Earth, Unchimaka in Lakota, the things that we feel, the sensations that touch our body and come into contact, our feelings, the things that we smell, the things that we taste. These are all the things that I live for, and that we can often take for granted when we exist in our physical form here. And that's the one thing that when I was meditating, I felt like I would miss the most, and that I felt a fear. I felt scared of thinking of my own death, because I would lose these beautiful sensations that I'm so blessed to have in my physical form, in our beautiful life, on our earth. And so it encourages me to find that gratitude, to find that joy within being able to experience everything within a moment, even though it may be harder to get there at times, because they're blessings, they're everyday blessings, and we always have to be listening to them. So I just wanted to say that that's where I am right now with my relationship and meditations. And it's kind of what inspired the poem that I have overlaid in my music today. My experience last week getting body work done by one of my massage therapists, but healers as well, good friend. It took me to a place that I haven't been in a long time, because we've been in a pandemic, and ceremony, community gatherings are so difficult. So this experience that I haven't felt in a long time inspired this poem, this meditation on our sensations that we experience every day, and how we need to be grateful for them. And also how sometimes it can feel like, where is that line? Sometimes if I'm in ceremony, it sometimes doesn't always feel like I'm all in my body. You know, there's this other place to be explored. And so that's kind of what my poem talks about. And the music that goes along with it is just meant to be an extension of that. So, and I also wanted to take the time to thank my friend Sebastian, who's a photographer, videographer, who takes the time to do landscape videography, and he travels and walks on all lands, Mongolia, Japan, Brazil, the United States, Turtle Island, as I call it. But I just thought it was appropriate to have that as the video. So yeah, let's go ahead and watch and listen. If I could stay in this decolonized space, where every limb of mine feels a mile long, infinitely expanding in every direction, where every sound, instead of a sonic blanket, is but rather an ambiguous spirit, free but powerful in its might. Let it pierce through my being like a hot knife through butter. Let it resonate deep into my cells to permeate my deepest spirit. If I could stay in this decolonized space, where every sensation is undefinable, touches that caress me, but they appear not in front of me, in every and no location, everywhere and nowhere upon the infinite fabric of the universe. If I could stay in this decolonized space, remove my physical being from the spirit that lies within, surely I would. Surely I would.
Hello, everyone. Hi. I am Anju Hippolyte, and I'm zooming in from the Canarsie, Munsee, Lenape land, where I currently reside and where I'm originally from, now known as Crown Heights, Brooklyn, New York. I am bringing my parents, both of whom are ancestors, into the space, Kesnel Hippolyte et Marie Hippolyte. I am a writer, actor, educator, and I work at the intersection of theater arts, literacy, advocacy, and social equity with a focus on access. I am the director of We Howl, the associate director, sorry, of We Howl. Our director, Nathaniel Card, is here and will speak about We Howl in a bit. And I'm honored to share space with all of you today. When I think about grief and joy, I ask myself, what are the things that you want to do so that you don't leave this earth with regret? How can you live your most purposeful and joy-filled life? And I think about this quote that was coined by Russell Ledet, a Black med school student from Tulane University in 2019. The quote says, "We are our ancestors' wildest dreams." And this quote is now on t-shirts, and Black people, we wear these t-shirts proudly. And I say, and I think, yes, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. And I think about the day that I will too be an ancestor and how I want to be the wildest dreams for our future generations. And I think about Chadwick Boseman, who is an ancestor now, John Lewis, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and so many other individuals who have died at the hands of law enforcement or law enforcers. I think about my friend's brother who drowned this summer. He is an ancestor too. I think about my parents who passed away when I was 14 and 16, first my mother and then my dad, respectively. I had to watch them, they were ill, and so I had to watch them die slowly every single day, the breath leaving their bodies every single day. And I've had a very long time to sort of reconcile with death and grief and to ponder it. And in pondering death and grief, I have also pondered life. And it became significant to me, for me, to figure out what my purpose was. I went on a quest, praying to God every day, to show me what I was put here for. I supplicated, why am I here, for many years? And I got the answer. And now I know, and I know that I am now living in my purpose. And so breath is a very beautiful thing, to be able to breathe. And so there's joy in that for me, to be able to see another day. I used to have on an old business card a quote that I made up: as long as there is breath in your being and life in your body, it's never too late. Which brings me back to Chadwick Boseman. As far as we know, he worked until he couldn't. My dad, he worked until he couldn't. And it's interesting because my mom, once she went down, once she became ill, she was down until the day she left this earth. While my father had several iterations of resurrections, sort of like a cat with 9 lives. And not everybody can do that. And that is fine. Again, it's just about being you. And so my offer is to be yourself, be the best you can be, live your most purposeful, joy-filled life, and finish your business, whatever you were put here to do, or at least start it. Ashe.
Thank you, Anju. I met Anju while directing the poem that we're going to show in a few minutes. The poem is titled "We Howl," began as a play, an immersive play, attempting to address many issues that we face day to day, primarily toxic masculinity. A few years ago, I took on a personal mission to incorporate toxic masculinity as part of the theme or reason to any work that I produce from here on out. Well, I found that to be my mission. So this work does that by addressing things such as grief. Many, I'm sure, of you know that men, by and large, have a harder time processing grief. I don't want to say harder and qualify it that way, but there's a unique difficulty that men face in processing grief because of the traditions and ways that many of us have been brought up in this Western culture. So this poem was my way of working with other people in the theater community, friends and new actors who I had not worked with before, to respond to this moment in 2020 with words of our own that honor an example made by Allen Ginsberg. It wasn't set to celebrate necessarily Allen Ginsberg solely. He and his poem Howl were merely representatives of counterculture poetry and speaking truth to power and putting your heart out there and sharing it with the world around you. And I find that very powerful and an example that I wanted to carry forward in 2020 with not just one voice, but in this case, 10 voices in total. My relationship to dying and to grief is, well, I'll say I began meditating on it when I was 24 and read Buddhist and Tantric texts, really because I just found them fascinating. And then they really resonated with me, especially the words of a man named Osho. And through those readings, I sought to dissolve my fears because I found them to be holding me back. And I had known from those readings and just from, I don't know, life, that fears often come from things that we don't understand or we don't confront directly. So I sought to dissolve my fear of death by facing it and really getting to know death. One of the ways I did that was I embraced later on an article that I read from The Guardian called "The 5 Regrets of the Dying," and it was written. It was about a nurse named Bronnie Ware, who had been working with dying patients for years and had been writing down their regrets, and she cataloged them in 5 main points. I wish I had the courage to live life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends, and I wish that I had let myself be happier. So I've embraced those as a mantra or a way of working and getting through life. And that ultimately led to the creation of the poem we're about to share, We Howl.
I have felt my body shattered, splintered, slivered, shot, imploding in slow motion.
I have felt you out there, exposed, naked in the buff, cut and trampled, unclothed. I have
felt the irate repetition of empty arguments.
My.
You.
I have felt the weighted creeps, delusions pressed upon my chest, wondering when we all, you and I and he and she and they, can breathe together free.
I have felt. Hit hard sometimes, wondering if I'm wrong or right, or why should anyone care?
I have felt a dark web of fingers grabbing hold of heart, torn apart, ripped, whipped away in an instant.
I have felt broken things come back together, and then break again, glued precariously, kintsugi together.
I have felt like I'm losing time, hemorrhaging life, crying for those who tried, a swell of tears filling the unknowing void, my spirit waterlogged in apathy and apprehension.
I have felt the gossamer threads of my delicately woven web in a gilded cage, door open yet unable to walk through, seeking life in the crevices and valleys.
I have felt standing in a desert quicksand of my own sweat and tears, unmoored, floating adrift.
I have felt the vast cavern of unfeeling, refracted in the misty eyes of the world.
I have felt naked truths exposed, everyone exploding, wanting to be heard.
When I cannot catch my breath.
When they cover their eyes and complain about the darkness.
When I don't have the energy to hold on to a breath anyway.
When my heart has been broken.
When my jaws lock up.
When I lose control.
When I'm tensed.
When I cry incessantly for hours and those hours turn to days.
How dare you think those who made my grandmother suffer were right?
When my soul cannot do anything but laugh to hide the sorrows until the laughter turns again into sobs.
When I only act on reflex.
When I'm too tired to feel the pain drowning out the beats of my heart that has gone numb from isolation.
How can I talk to you?
When the current is too strong.
When the tides turn, but the waves still pound my aching, salt-encrusted flesh.
When lives ended by hate haunt me.
When loneliness grows cobwebs into my heart.
When white men don't think for themselves.
When I vibrate instead of breathing.
When I hope upon hope to turn a corner, to break free.
When I stopped my soul, scarred, senseless, screaming silent, heart stopped soundless, beating silent, breath stopped, seizing silent too.
When my voice stops in my throat, tears burning bounty by disregard.
What can I?
When each corner reveals another wall.
Why must I be afraid of you?
When I see the truth.
When the wave takes me through to the other side just to find another wave.
When the dust of crumbling culture clouds catching on the sinews.
When off-center, balance reels wide, and overcompensations topple the progress of revolutions.
When I know pressure can only be contained for so long, but I lie anyway.
When there's nothing left to say.
What's the point?
When I police myself, waiting out the tide.
When I hold it all in for fear of exploding.
When I plug the volcano.
When I kink the hose.
When the isms hold me captive.
Can't I say nothing at all?
When the song unsung dies within.
When I censor myself.
When I stop and center myself.
I cannot stomach that you think I'm less human.
When the caged bird no longer sings.
When will it all recede?
When I don't know why.
When I don't know how.
When I don't know where.
When I don't know what, why, and how the fuck.
When does it stop?
When I can't anymore.
How will it end? When will it end?
When my mind is clear.
Where do we go from here?
That dubious path which leads to Main Street vacant and shuttered.
Oh, American dream.
The country of dreams? Nah, the country of salesmen.
Where the TV watches an unprogrammed cable president.
And we consume, breathe the dream.
Oh, American dream.
You good time slut. This is all a new concept for me.
Let work be our liberty and equality where freedom is structured.
And dream the dreamland.
America seems to have it all, or does it?
Oh, American dream.
Great America has always been only a dream.
A nightmare to many where the greedy machine must bleed profit.
You never come to mothers who can't sleep at night.
Oh, American dream.
Slimy Uncle Sam lurking in the corner, leering.
A specter that deformed me into something I did not recognize, cheapened my existence.
Mirage, bloody, crushed, and hopeless story of your America.
The New American Dream is discussed in my new book, available now on Amazon.
Oh, American dream.
You. Hey, you.
Hey, you.
I'm with you in New York, where your grandmother awaits by the phone for news of your ailing grandfather. I'm with you in Sderot,
where your bomb-sheltered brain silently goes mad.
I am with you in Miskovica,
where your grave is waiting for my visit. I am with you in Rockland, where Solomon's name echoes in eternal defiance.
I am with you in the vet clinic, where you say goodbye to the goodest boy ever.
I'm with you.
I'm with you.
I'm with you in unemployment, where each day is a yawning void. Mourning the comforts taken for granted.
I'm with you in the laundromat, where one thought spins endlessly like the dryer drum. How the hell do I have so much clothes? I ain't working.
I am with you in the early morning light, where your mind wakes to find that familiar but tired question. Is this all still a weird dream? I am with you at home, where you power through another fucking Zoom call.
I'm with you at night when fears are plentiful
and peace is a stranger. I am with you at the fridge when you can't sleep.
Mind as vacant as a veggie drawer.
I'm with you on the couch
As you fight to do any simple thing.
Simple thing.
I am with
I'm
you.
with you.
I am with you.
I'm with you in the kitchen. Baking, baking, baking. Just don't think about it. Baking.
I am with you in spring cleaning, detoxing away old habits to make space for new blessings.
I am with you in your garden, where something actually survived.
I'm with you in the memories, where breathing fresh air was carefree.
I am with you at the theater, where, breath taken, we marvel at the beauty of the craft.
I am with you in Napa, where wine pours until we can't stand and just sit in the grass and talk.
I am with you in the before times, now times, after times, and in-betweens.
I am with you in the streets, where we demand to be heard.
I am with you in spirit, cheering you on and praying you are safe.
I'm with you in the small victories and the forward progresses.
I am with you in the silver linings where sunlight breaks through the storm inside.
I am with you in solitude, in amplitude, in rising.
I'm with you in the place we've arrived to again, but no, for the first time.
I am with you on the map that is inside each and every one of us.
I am with you in love.
I am with you when our voices intertwine and rise together.
Hope and faith shall overcome.
Hello everybody, my name is Amber Jeffrey. I'm just bringing myself up to speed with my whole technology. So yes, hello everybody, my name is Amber Jeffrey. As you can tell probably by my accent, I am not from the States, I am from the United Kingdom, in a little town called Wokingham, just outside of Windsor, where Windsor Castle, where the Queen lives. But we're not here to talk about geography, are we? No. Firstly, before I begin, I would like to thank Lana for reaching out and creating this connection between us and inviting me to be a part of this today. It's been really lovely to sit and listen to all the previous guests here, and I'm looking forward to hear Jessica after myself. So I will get into how I am in this grief and death world and what my relation is with it. Where I am today and why I've been asked to be a panelist on this. I'm not just some random person. So rewind about 4 years ago, back in 2016, I was 19, freshly turned 19, and my, what I thought perfectly healthy mother passed away on June 25th of 2016 to a heart attack that none of us knew of any pre-existing conditions or issues. As you can imagine, it threw myself and my older brother into a complete and utter hellhole and new world that neither of us knew how to navigate round. Also, I was 19 at the time, so I was kind of in a place where I was kind of just discovering myself, but discovering I just left, my school education. I've figured out, well, who am I then? Now I'm having to navigate who I am as a young woman, and a young woman without my mum. So yeah, it threw us into this completely different world, and it's all a bit of a blur, really, that first year in 2016 going into 2017. I remember my grief was very present, but I was very good at suppressing that big part of me and just getting on with my life. Also at the time then too, I had just started my first sort of like big job in the world as a 19-year-old. So I plodded on with that. And then with my grief, fast forward about 3 years, so around the beginning of summertime last year, 2019, my mental health took a very big decline. And it took a very big decline in the sense of there were thoughts going around my head that I never thought I would have, and feelings that I never thought I would have. Those 3 years that had passed, I sort of prided myself that, in a bit of a weird way, that's sort of how I coped. I prided myself that I hadn't already had a decline in my mental health and that I was doing okay. I had this grief thing in the bag, so to speak. But as I've now learned, grief, I felt like that was my autopilot years, and just getting through autopilot survival mode until the survival mode button just didn't work anymore, and it said enough is enough, we're going to deal with this grief face on now. And that's what it decided to do. So around the summertime of 2019, that's what happened. My grief was fully showing its true self in myself, in just everything else in my life, and I didn't know how to handle it. So with that, I seeked the route of counselling or therapy here in the UK. So for those who aren't from the UK, which I probably presume a lot of you aren't from the UK, obviously we have the NHS, the National Health Service, which is we're very grateful for. So my immediate thing was, when I decided to go for counselling or therapy, to look to our beloved NHS. Unfortunately, there was just an extremely long waiting list. And for me, in that current time, I couldn't wait. I didn't know what was going to happen or what I could do to myself in that current waiting time. I needed help, and I needed it now. So I looked at going privately funded, and it was just extremely expensive, something that I personally myself on my wage couldn't afford. Even though I needed it, I also have to pay bills too. So that was out the window. And then I looked at online therapy, so virtually. It was something that I did want to have as my last resort, as I'm a very much a face-to-face interact person. And there was something just about online that didn't, I feel, would do it for me. And so I resorted to that. And let's just say in a few words that it didn't work for me. I came across a few bad eggs in therapy. And I just didn't find my match. And I now realise that now. But after that, I really did disregard therapy, and it had quite a bad connotation to me. But now I just realise I just didn't get a nice one, and I kind of threw in the towel. But so I finished that, and I was a bit like, oh well, is that it? You know, I've tried the therapy thing and it's not worked for me. Like shit, I must be really broken. And I really found myself at a rut, thinking, because I really thought, you know, everybody, my mindset was then everybody goes to counselling or therapy, and you know they get the help that they need there, and it didn't work for me. So I thought, yeah, I'm not okay. And it came to around a week ago this time last year, so early September of 2019. Myself and my partner, we went away on holiday to Marrakesh, and I love a podcast anyway, and I threw in the word grief into the search bar just to see what would come up. I love a podcast anyway, so I thought, yeah, let's see what's out there. So I threw in grief, and I, you know, subscribed to a few podcasts and saved a few and downloaded a few to listen to during our vacation. And I listened to a few, and I liked them, and I thought it's really good that these are out there. But then in the same time, I thought, I don't really feel resonated to. I don't really feel seen. I don't really feel like someone is talking to a young adolescent person in the depths of grief, like right now, and talking about the stuff they're going through. They're either people that have obviously been through a loss from when they were younger, but they're speaking from years in advance. I felt in that moment I needed someone who was right here, right now with me. And that's when I turned to my partner and I said, well, I'm going to do it. And it was all in my head at this point, just a bit like a jumble sale in my head. And he said, what? I said, I'm going to start a podcast. And I'm the least creative. I was the least creative child in school. So this was something for me to come up out of the air with. This was quite different for me, let's say. So yeah, I said, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to start a podcast about grief, and it's going to cater to the younger audience, and talk about the things that necessarily people don't like to talk about when it comes to grief, the kind of nitty gritty stuff that you kind of say in your head and you don't really say it out loud. But no, we're going to say it in this. So that was where the Grief Gang is born. So my podcast and my page is called The Grief Gang. And it is its 1 year birthday tomorrow, which to me is just absolutely wild. So yeah, it's a Grief Gang's birthday tomorrow. The whole page and podcast, like I said, it just consists of me, a lot of guests that I've met in this last year, talking and breaking down the taboos that is grief. And there's things, like I said, that are going around in our heads that we feel we shouldn't talk about. And I feel like it comes with an essence of humour too. It's one thing I like to provide, that you can laugh in grief, and there are things that you can find humorous about it, and it's okay to laugh about it. So yeah, it's been an absolute journey with my podcast. I've met some fantastic people and come into contact with fantastic people such as Lana, and it's something I hope to continue for forever. To round up my little section, as I know I'm a rambler, there was a prompt that Lana had in our document, and I'd like to leave it with. It was, I'll read the actual question out and then I will pass along. So the prompt was, if you found out that you have 3 weeks left to live, what do you want to share with our audience? So what I'd like to share with you guys before I go in relation to grief is that your grief is a part of you, but it doesn't have to define you. Your grief can be a big part of you. My grief is a big part of me, but it doesn't have to define you. You don't have to be defined by that label, and you can just be you. So that's me. Thank you so much for listening, and I will pass now the baton.
Thank you, Amber. This is Jessica. I'm currently living on Tongva land as well. I had the opportunity to meet Lana on my journey with death work. I've been cultivating a relationship with death for the past decade or so. These days, my practice mostly focuses on noticing and observing certain things in society that seem to be pervasive and even more visible these days. So one of the things I keep an eye out for is behaviors and actions and words that indicate the assumption of immortality. And if you spend some time looking around, as I'm sure a lot of you have, it doesn't really look like we believe we're going to die. So that's always kind of a grounding thing for me to notice. Our refusal to acknowledge limits is another one of my practices to notice. And also on the limits piece, the disdain that's become sadly more apparent with COVID for those of us who are sick and those of us who are aging. There's so much information in how COVID happens and the ways in which people spoke about the folks who were the most vulnerable to that. I do work with my ancestors. My people originally hail from Sweden, Scotland, Ireland, England, Switzerland, Germany, and some places in Southern Europe. Recently, my ancestors are Hicksite Quakers. There was a Puritan minister in there as well. So got both sides of the coin with that. And brick masons and some farmers. And I've been working very closely with my ancestors the past 3 or 4 months. Actually, they've been working with me. They've been working on me in really intense ways. And they've been teaching me about barriers to grief that I personally have. So the next 5 minutes of sharing or so is not my wisdom. It's not, it doesn't come from me. It's what my people have shown me and what they've been trying to work with me on. So one of my primary barriers to grief is my tendency to brace for impact. And they showed this to me as more of an inheritance, right? Again, those stoic Midwest, Northwest farmer folks inherited quite a bit of bracing for impact. And they are teaching me about the importance of movement. So if the house is on fire, right, we are in burning times in so many ways. I mean, there's a lot to be bracing for, of course. But they showed me a couple different things, right? They showed me if you know a blow's coming and you tense up, it's going to shatter, versus those beautiful palm trees in Florida, for instance, that can literally start to give way when the winds get strong. And when the house is on fire, right, you stop, but you don't stay stopped. You get low to the ground, you get close to the earth, and you roll, you move, you move. So they've been working a lot with me around movement, not bracing for impact, and also emoting. Hence, it's a barrier to grief, the bracing, the buckling. The other thing they've been working on me with is, as a barrier to grief, interestingly, is my tendency to get into verbal sparring with people I'm closest to, and when I feel like it's safe to do that. And there's sort of a advantage that I utilize in a not awesomely relational way. Yeah, and as I'm sure all of us on the call have sensed and noticed and felt and are aware of, there's lots of energies flying pretty low to the ground right now that we don't need to be feeding any more than they're already being fed, right? There's a couple things we might want to starve off. And finally, ways into grief. So they've have led me to the first thing they're talking to me about and working with me with is around pacing, right? So grief can hit us when we slow down, and our society is not constructed to go slow. There's a poem by Stephen Dobbins. I'm not going to share the whole piece, but it starts out, each thing I do, I rush through so I can do something else. And so the days go by. And this is not hospitable to grief. So pacing, slowing down, embodiment, right? Movement, sound practices, all of these things that feel resonant. They've also been working with me a lot around softening, and actually leaning into the edges of my ability to be mothered by others and find ways to map that internally to learn how to be nurturing with myself. And the last piece, really, besides listening into the ancestors and the other than human kin and the fauna and the flora, they're sharing things that living humans we just don't quite have the read on or the pulse of. But the biggest thing they shared with me recently that I want to share with you all is they showed me how much support I have in my life with my people, my ancestors. A mountain spirit showed up from the mountain that's closest to us, all these plant people, animal people, and there was a moment where I snagged when they were showing me the support, and I'm like, there's no way I've done enough to deserve this much support. Like, I'm sure there's someone else out there who'd be better served to have it. And they're like, you see that narrowing, that snag that you have actually limits our ability to flow through you and help you hold the people you're holding. So really that working the worth part a lot, and just weeping with gratitude and humility at the sheer amount of support, instead of blocking it with worth snags, so that everyone I'm holding can also be held by all those things holding me. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for all of the speakers and artists who shared your gorgeous and tragic and empowering creations and offerings. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who attended and who's watching right now, or anyone that will be watching the recording. Thank you for showing up for this work. There's more to come. I just want to send you off with a few little notes. If you want to support this project, you can just go to seemarama.com/DMDT and that you can find that on my Facebook page. You can probably find that, or you can find that in the invite that I sent out to you. And you can find that on my Instagram as well. So it'll be very easy to support this project if you are able. And if you're not able, that is completely acceptable and okay. And I just want to also say that on that page, there is also a button that says create your death file. And so that's another free resource that I offer if you are feeling called or ready to essentially prepare for your death well ahead of your death. Or, you know, life is impermanent, as we've talked about throughout this event, so none of us know when we'll leave. And so I believe that creating a death file is one of the most beautiful gifts you can give to your loved ones, because then when you die, they will not have to take care of anything besides the important work of grieving you and mourning with you and celebrating you. So you can find that on our page. And again, that's www.seemarama.com/DMDT/. And just want to let you know as well, we will have another event in October 25th. So if you're interested in that, please join us. And I'll be sharing that all over as well. And now I would like to invite all of the speakers and artists to come back on, to turn on your cameras and audio, just so we can see each other one final time this evening. And I just want to invite all of us to breathe together. Yeah, turn on your audio and let's just breathe. You know, the anthem of this year certainly has been "I Can't Breathe," and we're able to breathe. At least I'll speak for myself. I'm able to breathe right now, so it feels really, really important to me to breathe, to encourage breath around me, to encourage breath for others, and to breathe and send my breath into the earth, and to breathe for my ancestors, and to breathe into the idea that I'm a future ancestor. So we're gonna leave you with some breath. After we finish breathing, all of us together, we're gonna play a video that I made for my live events called "The Stages of Death," and it's just a supportive poem to help you look at death in a new perspective. So that will play, and then when that's over, the event's over. But right now, I just wanna take 3 deep breaths as a group, and everyone who's watching, please join us. Just take a deep inhale. Exhale. Inhale. As you exhale, notice all the places where your body is touching the ground, close to the earth. Take a deep inhale of gratitude. I'm so grateful for each of you. For everyone that gathered today, I'm holding my breath and just holding all of you with my breath. And exhale. Thank you all so much. You've really touched me today. Yeah. All right, we'll watch the stages of death, and I hope you all have a beautiful night. Good night, everyone. This is one translation, really a compilation of the stages of death. 1, root chakra, root of tree, root of sexuality, located in the west. The place on the wheel where we die, but it goes backwards. As we leave our body, it's the first to go, this earth element. And when the earth leaves our body, so does our sight, but that's not all. So does the illusion that our sexuality isn't sacred. The veil drops and we embody our sexuality. At the same time, our DNA reminds us that all we have to do is gift our essence to the universe, to womb chakra, cradle of creation where waves and dolphins play, located in the south, the place on the wheel where grief and love are the same. Laughter turns to tears, back to laughter, and on, like a spiraling web of witchery. As we leave our body, this water is the second element to go. We must dry up, as the water is needed elsewhere. As it flows out, drop the veil of separation. That false belief that we are separate from nature can fall. We remember that we're already home. We are part of this cycle, along for the ride. At the same time, our DNA implores us to stay in our essence despite others' influences. 3, solar plexus chakra, our fire dancing core, stronger than we know, located in the east, the place on the wheel where we're born. And as we leave our body, our sight is the third element to go. The fire behind our eyes isn't needed to see where we're going, wherever that may be. The veil of politics burns away in this moment. A return to philosophy is possible. At the same time, our DNA encourages us to simply do the next thing. That's all. Just take the next step. 4, heart chakra, love, located in the north, the place on the wheel where our guides and elders reside. Swan, owl, bear, and as we leave our body, our air, our wind, our breath is the fourth to go. Without the breath, our sense of touch must cease as well. But hear this, beloved. Our body knows how to die. It knew how to be born, and it knows how to die. In fact, it's very good at it. And as the breath moves out, so does the veil of religion, and the ability to return to your inner knowing arises. We understand now that when our DNA says knowledge is not a way to be superior or inferior, this is true. Knowledge is a tool, not a notch of hierarchy. 5, throat chakra, the place that buzzes with expression, located above, the place on the wheel where the open sky makes waves for other galaxies. And as we leave our body, it's this ether element that is the 5th to go. And with it, your hearing goes. You expand into your consciousness. Your hearing is dissolved into space. The veil that money has meaning dissolves as well. Our DNA asks us what we would learn if we evaluated and interviewed the words we use. 6, third eye chakra, intuition. Inner seeing comes with inner knowing, located below in the roots and crystals of the earth. The place on the wheel where we ground down. The body has died, thus thoughts of anger and hatred cease. The veil of time ticks away as we notice time moves both ways. And our DNA reminds us to notice the vibration of our actions. 7, crown of the head chakra, a place of connection to all and all and all. Located within in order to go out. The place on the wheel where we learn we have to figure it out for ourselves. That's the final veil. Figure it out for yourself. Thoughts of greed and attachment are gone. We're gone. They're gone. And our DNA says celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. The final 8, confusion ceases.